Hello and welcome to She Leads Collective podcast. I'm Mary Gregory and I'm so glad you're here. This podcast is a space for honest conversations about what it really means to lead as a woman today and how we can all show up with more courage, care and clarity. You'll hear from inspiring women, powerful allies and bold truth tellers who are changing the game, not by playing tougher, but by leading smarter, softer and stronger. Hello and welcome to this week's podcast episode. Now, I'm someone who struggles with getting a joke. I seem to laugh about 20 minutes after everyone else. But what if someone told you that women aren't funny? Would you believe them? Or would you make it your life's work to prove them wrong? That's exactly what my guest today, Lynne Parker, founder and CEO of Funny Women CIC, decided to do. In 2002, after hearing those very words from a comedy promoter, Lynne set out to change the narrative. Just a year later, she launched the Funny Women Awards, which now attract over 2,000 female and non-binary entrants every year from around the globe. And this year's final is actually taking place tomorrow in the Bloomsbury Theatre, London. Over 2 decades on, Funny Women has become a thriving non-profit community providing a safe, diverse and creative platform for women to perform, write, build confidence and use humour, not only in the arts, but also in business and everyday life. Lynne has also created HERlarious, a sister brand of workshops and events, and is the host of a podcast, How to Have Fun at Work. Through this work, she's helping people in business and public life to stand up to stand out and bring humour into the workplace. I've personally experienced Lynne's unique approach through her Stand Up to Stand Out workshops. It's been both transformative and enormous fun, showing how comedy techniques can boost confidence and presence. Her incredible contribution, and it really is incredible, has been recognised with the British Citizens Award Medal of Honour for Services to the Arts, BCAs. Along with the accolade, including Most Inspiring Businesswoman at the Best Businesswomen Awards last year, the Athena 40 Leader of Social Impact Award, and both being named one of the Wise 100 Top Women in Social Enterprise 2025. But beyond the awards, Lynne is one of the most humble leaders I've met, passionate about giving others the stage and using humour as a powerful tool for change. Lynne, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to the She Leads Collective podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Mary. Well, I feel rather humbled by that intro, but thank you.
Well, you are a very humble leader. So, there's something about owning the greatness that you are, because you are phenomenal in what you've created over the last 20 odd years. Incredible. And such a stand for women.
Yes,
as well.
It's really important. I think women have a voice and comedy is a fantastic platform for it. We can communicate so much.
Excellent. Okay, so let's get going. Let's start right at the beginning. Where did you find your love of comedy? Where did that come from?
Well, I think it started quite early on. My late father, I think, felt he was a bit of a comedian. He was very keen on the comedians of the day, and I grew up listening to Round the Horn and the Navy Lark and such other things that certain generation will never have heard of. The Goon Show. I was literally brought up on that sort of crazy, largely male comedy. I would say discography, but that's the wrong word. The whole comedy scene at that point in time in the late 50s, early 60s it was driven by posh men on the sort of academic side of things, or working class men's working clubs. So by the time I was sort of old enough and watching things on television, it was men in frilly shirts telling mother-in-law jokes, or then it was like the sort of posh lads and the start of the whole alternative comedy scene. But my dad definitely not made me listen to it. He didn't kind of crack a whip over me, but I think because it was in the background, I kind of took it on. And the other thing, which I never thought of as an influence, my grandfather, my dad's dad, worked for the BBC, and he was not on the production side. He was actually a lighting technician. So he was a sort of engineer, and he lit the most amazing, iconic TV programs, like from Doctor Who to Ready, Steady, Go. I don't know if anyone would remember that, precursor to Top of the Pops. And, you know, I had a childhood where he'd bring home autographs. I got the Beatles autographs and Cilla Black and other, you know, TV stars of the day. And I also got taken to see things. And believe it or not, I was taken to the BBC Theatre probably about the age of 8 or 9 to hear a recording of the Navy Lark. So I actually remember sitting, watching all these famous people of the day, recording an episode, which didn't go out live, but it was then recorded and put on the radio, of iconic radio comedy. So I think it's really interesting how much that influenced me, because then in my teens, I was always trying to make things. I remember having a reel-to-reel tape recorder and getting all my friends to do terrible radio play that I'd written. And I got my dad to help me record it. But ironically, always in the sort of producer role, not the performer. I'm very happy being on the sidelines, and yeah, which is interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. Well, it's interesting when it looks at what you've created in Funny Women, because it very much is about promoting funny women. Yeah. And you are definitely the driving force behind that, but you don't put yourself forward in the spotlight that much, I would say.
No, which is a kind of common issue with women as well. I think we are often a little bit wary of leadership, or we go about it in a different way.
Definitely go about it in a different way, I think. And it's a lot to do with how we're brought up and conditioned, I think. Not just by our parents, but by society as a whole.
Yes.
But let's not go down that track, because we're here today to start to talk about Funny Women. And it sounds like you had a really gifted childhood in terms of promoting your love of comedy and it becoming just part of your life and part of what you did.
Yeah.
I'm therefore really curious about what's behind how did you get to that point where there was that pivotal moment where that man said to you, women just aren't funny?
Well, it is a much told story, and I had a whole career before I even got to this stage. I mean, I've been running Funny Women for 23, nearly 24 years, and I had a whole career in journalism to start with, and then I went into PR. I found myself at a point where I was freelancing. I had a number of clients that I worked for, and I got recommended to work on a brand that was being launched in the UK as a comedy club, and it was called The Improv. It had nothing to do with improvisation. It was a well-known American brand that wanted to launch a club in London. They had taken a residency at what was called the Embassy Club on Tottenham Court Road, which is quite interesting. But the Embassy Club was well known for hosting TV shows. I don't know if you remember the Jack D show.
Oh, yes.
At all. Yes. And it was that start when they started to televise a lot of comedy, and the club, so the Improv thought, oh, this is a great place to do it. You know, a lot of TV people go down there. We'll run a club there. And I somehow, through recommendation, got hired as the publicist. And it was fantastic. I was mainly working with the American partner, who I think had been connected with some other client that I had. And it was a real eye-opener, because it was night after night, quite of their day, quite well-known comedians. I mentioned Jack D. Who were the other people? There was the pub landlord was always on there. It was that era when a lot of people who are now super famous and on TV all the time were sort of not just starting out, but probably more on the circuit than they were on telly. But never any women. I couldn't understand it. I kept saying, well, where are all the female comedians? Where are they? You know, at the time, Jo Brand and Jenny Eclair and Ruby Wax, who I have seen live, but they were all, you know, active and gigging, but they weren't being booked for this club. So a throwaway comment on my part was, to not to the American guy who was very supportive, but to the English producer at the time. I said, well, why don't you put a few women on the bill? And he just turned around and said, well, because women aren't funny and there aren't any funny women. And that stuck. You know how you just get that light bulb moment? You think, well, hang on a minute, that is not true. Those women are out there. What is it about the world of comedy that has to just, night after night promote male comedians and not female comedians? I've had many conversations about this in the obviously over the years, but it was mainly because it was just kind of a hostile environment and the women didn't want to do it. Late nights, a lot of misogyny. It wasn't just the men not being booked. It was also the environment and it was the way they were treated. Anyway, that led me to come up with the idea. I said to the promoter, I think that you're wrong. I think there are lots of women out there. Let me put on an all-female comedy event and I'll prove that there are loads of women out there. And we got into this discussion about what we were going to do. And then the American promoter and the English promoter fell out big time. They just basically, the American guy left and went back to the States, leaving me with a British team, all male, who brought in a couple of other people and fired me.
So that was the end of that story, but it wasn't the end.
That was the end of that story. However, it wasn't the end. No, this is the weirdest thing. Strangely, in conversation with, I can't remember who it was, someone had said to me, oh, Funny Women is a fantastic brand name. You should buy a URL. Now, we're talking about 1998 here. I didn't even know what a URL was. Obviously, they meant a web domain. So I bought funnywomen.com and all the derivatives thereof, which in effect sort of protected my copyright, my brand. And that was step one. And then I can't remember what the sequence was. Then we set up the actual company. So we launched the very first event in 2002 when we did a big, huge, never to be done again, comedy gala with all the famous names of the time, all women. It was hosted by Mel and Sue. We had amazing headliners, like I think Jenny Eclair was on, Ronnie Ancona. I mean, it was just the great and the good of comedy. It on paper, it's the best thing I've ever done, but in real reality, it was probably the hardest and the most difficult thing I've ever done. And it's one of those things, make all your mistakes in one go. I did that. And I think the fact that I bounced back at all is quite incredible, really, looking back on it.
Well, I suppose what my next question, because that might have been an amazing start, but a hard-earned
lesson. Yeah.
Full of lessons.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you imagine when you were starting out, that Funny Woman would become the global phenomenon it's become?
No, I mean, what happened straight after that big charity night is that one of our sponsors was the lovely, gorgeous, still love it, not necessarily the drink, by Baby Sham came up as they got involved with it, the gala charity night, which was for breast cancer charities, by the way. So we did it all linked in with women and everything. But Baby Sham loved it so much. The brand was owned by a company called Matthew Clark, and I worked with a lovely all-male team, actually. They were absolutely great, who said, we think this is great. And they'd heard me talking about the fact that I wanted to have a competition and a platform to encourage more women to do stand-up and comedy in general. In those days, it was just stand-up, really, and performance. And they said, look, if you want to run a competition, we'll help you. We'll sponsor it. Come up with a plan. And we'll put some money behind it. And that's how the Funny Women Awards began. So I had that relationship for 3 years. The very first year of the competition was in 2003. I think we had 70 entries in total.
Compared to now?
Now we have nearly 2,000 nominees and entrants. I mean, now it's just like a crazy stuff. But we only had one award, and it was just one stage award. And I worked with a promoter who I shall be eternally grateful to, called Christian Knowles. who's still in the business and often gets involved as a judge and what have you. But he really sort of taught me the ropes of how to put on a night. I mean, I knew nothing. I mean, even though I was back there taping radio shows when I was 14, I had no idea how to put on something like a comedy night. But he introduced me to all sorts of people. We had the very first final at the Comedy Store, where I know them very well. We're doing another event with them at the end of October this year. The Comedy Store gave us the space for the final. We stayed with them for a long time, but then we outgrew it and moved to bigger venues, different venues. But I can't believe it was only 70 people. And we really scraped around for those. And we saw everybody, because that was 7 shows, I mean.
Who won in that first
year? That very
year?
first year was an act called Jade the Folk Singer, who was like a comedy parody character. In real life, her name was Sarah Adams. She's not in comedy anymore. So she won that year, and that was 2003. And then in 2004, Zoe Lyons won.
Zoe Lyons is often featured on TV, well-known comedian.
Still work with her. We never use the term comedian in Funny Women Land.
Okay. Is that like actor and so it's all, everyone's actors now, so everyone's a comedian now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Comedian, female comedian if you must. But yeah, I think there's a big trend to degenderize things a little bit. But yeah, fantastic act. Zoe, still work with her quite often. She's used her quite a lot for corporate work. And really amazing supporter of Funny Women. She's gone on and hosted finals for us in subsequent years. Anyway, that was it. So we had Babycham for 3 years. Then Constellation took over sponsorship. This has been the pattern, when you run something that is so dependent on funding and sponsorship, that is your biggest challenge, because that changes all the time. So we've had a lot of ups and downs with the sponsorship.
Securing sponsorship is a big deal.
Oh, it's really difficult. And I've now got into, because we are now a community interest company, I now go for funding as well, which I spend a lot of my time writing very boring applications, which is, not for the faint-hearted, but there you go, you do it, it's part of the job. So yeah, we've gone from that, and now we're currently, to bring us fast forward, we're this year kindled a relationship with BBC Studios. So it sort of worked out quite well. It's very good for us to work with a broadcast brand. So this year, we are peaking again on the entries. One of the awards that we brought in a few years ago is the Content Creator Award, where the public vote. So that brings in a lot of traffic, but it also brings in a lot of nominations. So we have, that really puts the numbers on. But even without that, we've had over 900 entries for the comedy, the stage award, the main one that everyone knows about, the comedy writing and the comedy short film award. So it's a huge job with very limited resources, a lot of nights sat up reading scripts, watching films. I mean, they all submit now even for the stage award, they submit a video, and we don't see everybody, because we had over 450 stage award submissions this year. So I think we saw about 150 of them I went on the road this year, which I haven't done that since 2019. So, this was a big year.
I know. Every time I've seen you this year, you've been dashing off somewhere to go and watch a semi-final.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's incredible. So you started off with 70 the first year. You're now with over 2,000, and you're talking about, hundreds for each specific award category.
And 5 awards. Yeah, because we only had 1 category when we started out. And now we have the content creator, which I mentioned, and then we have the others for writing and short film. The nice thing about that is that if you're not necessarily able to go and perform on a stage, I mean, you might be a young mum with kids and responsibilities, and you just can't go out at night to do stand-up because it's tough. You can be a content creator and do stuff for Instagram and TikTok, or you can make a short film, a short comedy film, which I think is underrated, because actually I think the short films this year are so amazing. It's so brilliant. And I know quite a few of the women who've made the short films also are on the circuit, but they several cases they've got young kids, and it's difficult for them to get out on the road and do that. So it's really great that they've taken their comic talents and put them into short form film format. But it's brilliant, and I think that's equally valid. I think it's, and also you've really got to think about it when you're making a film. It's a different kind of punch, comedy wise. So that's been particularly rewarding this year.
That's great to see. And I know that there's still a few tickets left for tomorrow night's
Yes,
final.
yeah,
So if
please.
anyone is interested to go along, I know I was there in the last final that you had, and it was a really
It's a
great
great
evening of
night, yeah. So
celebration.
it's going to be quite exciting to get back on that stage at the Bloomsbury and bring it, as they say, bring it.
So before we move on from the awards, you've mentioned Zoe. What other performers have you helped come to the fore through Funny Women and through the
I
awards?
think help is probably the wrong word, because it's a difficult thing. I think to be a successful comedian, comedy writer, whatever, you're doing it for yourself. There's no question of it. And at the end of the day, anyone who runs a competition like I do, and there are others, it is an opinion formulated by, in our case this year, public opinion and professional industry judges. So I think the word help is in the context of helping you to be recognized, helping you to get seen, helping to give you some guidelines for your ongoing career. But we don't take any ownership of the talent. We are a non-profit organization that exists to give these people a platform and to get them in front of the industry. So a lot of the women that have performed in the stage award have gone on to be hugely successful, but it's their own talents and their own, it's a good Jewish word, chutzpah, that gets them there. It's not anything that we specifically do other than put them in front of people. I think that's an important point to make, because ironically, the marriage that we make between industry and talent isn't always recognized perhaps as much as it should be. As I mentioned, we're working with BBC Studios this year, and we have worked with Sky Studios. In broadcast terms, we've always had fantastic support. We've worked with Channel 4, we've worked with ITV. We've had a lot of support from the broadcast industry. But the people who also benefit hugely from developing new talent are the management companies and the agents. And my biggest beef really about the industry is that those people don't necessarily give us the support that we need, down to not even buying their tickets for the final. We are expected to give everything away. I think people see what we do and we make it look good, and they think we don't need that support and that money. But every ticket purchased really helps us out, because as a non-profit, all the money we generate out of Funny Women goes back into doing all the other things that we do. In terms of talent, famous talent, I'll reel off the ones everybody kind of knows. I would say the number one biggest talent that's ever come through the Funny Women Awards is Catherine Ryan, who won in 2008. That same year, the person who came second was Sarah Pascoe. So that was quite a year. Who else can I mention? I mean, Kerry Godliman's very big at the moment as mainly acting. She's back on the road actually doing stand-up, but she was in our very first, I can't remember what year she was. I think she was the Zoe Lyons year. But we love Kerry, and in fact, you saw her with us earlier this year when we had the launch.
She was great.
Yeah, I can reveal that this year's final will be hosted by Amy Gledhill, who is a fantastic stand-up. She didn't win. I think she was a mere finalist, but even so, they can't enter again once they've been in the final. So the fact that you get to the final is amazing. But she was, I think, 2012 finalist. But if you look at, anyone's interested in Amy, she's been doing amazing stuff. She pops up a lot on telly now. And we've got a really amazing headline performance by Rachel Parris, who was a runner-up as well in the awards, and delighted that she's coming back to work with us.
So what I also get is that you're not their agent, you're there as a platform.
No.
To showcase female comedy talent.
We're not there to make, I mean, this is where probably the leadership thing comes in. We're not there to make money out of them in the sense of signing them and managing them.
I'm noticing how loyal the women that you have given the platform to, the fact they come back and they'll do their showcase and be compares or whatever, the fact they'll give their time back to you says something.
They do, but in a lot of cases, they are also being paid.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we're a community interest company, which means that we are also recognize the fact that these women, all of us, earn a living from doing this, and everyone should be paid to do a job. And again, my ethos is that we always pay people as much and as fairly as we can. Then when occasionally someone will come and do a job and say, look, Lynne, I'm not going to invoice you for that. I love doing it. I want to help you out. Donate that money to the Glitter Project or whatever. I'm really grateful. That is so lovely. But I do think we should encourage in any business, not just Funny Women, that the spirit of paying it forward is really important to me. That's going back to what you said about helping people. We're not, those people are talented anyway, but by being seen on the stage of the final of the Funny Women Awards, and you get signed to an agent, that is great, because that's what you're doing it for. And all we ask is that when you are successful and you're earning your millions, from TV ads and big corporate events, just remember us and maybe pay it back in the smallest of ways. It might be doing a gig for charity, or it might be doing mentoring somebody who's coming up through the ranks. A lot of them do, actually. I mean, I think women generally, regardless of Funny Women, I think women are pretty good at paying it forward and bringing people up the ladder, aren't we? I think we have a natural intuition for doing that. I just sometimes question the motives, but I think you have to be quite Machiavellian in any business. And whereas I think when I started out, it was the women were much more closed about encouraging other female comedians. Now it seems to be normal.
There's a lot more generosity around.
Yeah, I do remember a conversation with now, I'm not going to say who it is, but quite a famous comedian who actually came up to me and said right to my face, I don't like what you're doing. I was quite happy being the only female on the bill. Why are you doing this? Which was interesting.
Yeah. I think there is certainly a move towards women lifting each other up these days. That's part of the dialogue that's going on.
Yeah. And and men lifting us up as well. I mean, male allies are incredibly important.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like with the baby shams, without those male allies there.
No, they were amazing. And I have to say, they were some of the happiest times of working. They were lovely people to work with. I still look back on that with a great deal of nostalgia, because also the baby sham branding was fantastic and it fitted with us really well. But I'm also, we're working with BBC Studios we're working with their digital channel called Funny Parts, and they're great fun to work with. We're working with a mixed team, male and female, quite a lot of women in leadership at the BBC, which is great. And that is why we're working with them, because one of their female leaders and I got chatting, and she couldn't understand why they weren't working with us, and I said, well, you tell me. So that's how that happened. But that is the power of women. We were at a networking event and we were chatting, so there you go. You never know where the opportunities are going to arise.
You never know. You never know indeed. Well, let's move on to talk a bit more about comedy, confidence and leadership, because I know that's another element of what you're involved with. So, you've talked about how humour builds confidence and presence. And I have to say, I've had my own experience where I've stood up and I've stood out in one of your workshops. And it was really, really powerful, actually. And I'm not an unconfident presenter. But it was definitely
but it's
stretching.
a very different discipline.
Yeah, very different. So it definitely pushed me out my comfort zone in the best possible way, I might add. But it gave me a whole different lens to look at in terms of confidence and how to present myself. So why do you think comedy is such an effective tool for building self-belief and presence, even for people like me who don't see themselves as funny?
I think we all in business and in life, we have a filter, and we filter out so much stuff and we don't say it. And I think what comedians do is they say it. I think that's the simple thing. They say the unmentionable or the unthinkable, or sometimes the inspirational and the most incredible things. And it's about giving yourself permission to stand up and stand up to stand out, as my workshop's called. It's not about being funny. It's about having that voice that you can say what you feel and what you want to say. All my life have been probably a bit too blunt for a lot of people. I do say what I think. I do happen to know now that is recognized now as more of a neurodiverse thing. Who knew? But I think a lot of us who are on that spectrum have dealt with that all through our lives, and it comes very naturally to us to say things. But I remember when I was much more in mainstream business in PR, I would sit in meetings and know instinctively that I couldn't say what was going around my head because it was inappropriate. But what comedy does is it gives you permission to turn off your editor and just say it anyway. And I personally think I'd like to see more of that in business. I think I hate all the politicking and the sort of whispering behind corners. And I like people to be open and honest and outspoken. And probably because of my disposition and the way I am, it seems perfectly normal to me, but to a lot of people it isn't.
Well, I think organizations are, all the elephants that there are in the room. Sometimes there's herds of them, isn't there? So I'd love, you're talking about how speaking straight, humor and comedy can help you speak straight. But how else does it translate in leadership and business settings?
We always remember funny people. Any politician, leader, quite often male, speakers at conferences, the one thing you will hear more than anything else when people come away say, oh, I like them, they were funny. We love a funny person. So by being able to access humor and use it, it does make you more memorable. And also the crack you get from having used it and got a laugh is amazing. So what I try and do in those workshops is get everyone to have a sense of that and know how that feels, because that feeling is what gives you the confidence. That's it. There's nothing more complicated than that. I should say, Mary, as well, that we've really put it to the test this year, because in a moment of complete and utter madness, having realized that we were going to run out of money, we were funded by the Arts Council to run our outreach program, the Glitter Project, and seeing the money that we got through funding disappearing through our fingers, I knew that I'm going to have to go for another round of funding, which I'm in the process of doing. I thought there's got to be an easier way. What can I do to raise some money to keep the Glitter Project going? So I had a Lynne light bulb moment, and I thought, I know what I will do. We'll challenge 10 women who've never done comedy before to do stand-up comedy. And I know what we'll do. We'll give them 5 minutes at the Edinburgh Fringe. And that was the key to it, because I mapped it all out. We got it all ready. I put it out there. I said, right, do you want to do 5 minutes of comedy at the world famous Edinburgh Fringe? And we did end up with 10 women. Unfortunately, one was had a health issue and couldn't come. So we had 9 women. We had 9 amazing women, all from the world of business, perform 5 minutes of comedy at the Edinburgh Festival. The fundraising aspect of it was that they all paid for that, and we gave them the most amazing comedy experience. We gave them a mentor, we ran boot camps, they had one-on-one coaching, they had different kinds of workshops. We started the program in May, and by the time they did their event in Edinburgh in one of the best venues at the Assembly Rooms, and I cannot tell you, Mary, they were so brilliant, but they had been absolutely so well trained and coached. I mean, I didn't do it all myself. I had a team I brought in. And the great thing about that was that everyone got paid. So we were able to pay all the comedians. So the money that we got from all the challengers paid for the training, the coaching, the venues. We looked after everybody, and we still made some money, which we are now ploughing back into our outreach Glitter Project, which is for people who don't have access to any of that, who live in a different situation.
So that is fantastic. What a great story. And what were some of the things that those women took away back into their business lives?
There is, if anyone wants to look at our website, we've got there's a review article where I just got everyone's comments about their experience into one piece. But the main thing that came through, the outstanding, was about the discipline and what comedy teaches you. I mean, some of these women are really experienced public speakers, and they're naturally quite funny, but them owning that in a comedy context rather than just throwing it in naturally for a public speaking engagement was a real breakthrough for them. I think a couple of them were very, very nervous. And I think there were a couple of occasions where I thought they're not going to do it. But once they'd done it, they were on such a high. It was really interesting to see how they developed. I'm not going to say it was an easy experience. Some of it was quite tough at the beginning. And it was the first time we've done it. And we had a lot of different, you imagine we had 10 women, 10 comedians. There was a lot going on, you know.
A lot of egos in the room, I should imagine.
I wasn't going to say that, but yes.
Well, we've all got an ego, so they've got to be there.
But I don't want to be offensive to anyone, because they all presented in very different ways. And it went from somebody who really, I did twist their arm to do it. And in the end, I think she agreed to do it because her mates were doing it, bit of peer pressure. But actually, of all of them, she went on the biggest journey because she was so slightly reluctant. But actually, she was brilliant when she did it on stage in Edinburgh. She was great. And furthermore, having got this far with it and raised some money, they then said, oh, we'd really like to do it again. And because we need to launch it again for next year. So we're doing a showcase at the Comedy Store.
That's happening next month.
So, you know, anyone who wants to see how we got these women from zero to here. I mean, they weren't zero because some of them were really brilliant public speakers anyway. But for them to do comedy, a couple of them said it was a bucket list thing for them. A couple of them said it's always been on a bucket list.
Amazing.
But rather than me retell it, the article on the website is really great because I've just it's their actual thoughts, not what I think.
Okay, so I'm mindful of time, so we're moving on to thinking about, you've had a lot of recognition over the years and won a lot of awards, quite justly so as well. So you've recently been honoured with the British Citizen Award. How does it feel to receive recognition for something that you call your life's work?
Well, the BCAa, the British Citizen Award, was really I'm still don't know how to talk about it, actually. I mean, it's the People's Honours, so they're very different to the Royal Honours. You are nominated by somebody in your community, and in my case, it was a lovely man called Dr. David Stokes, who runs a foundation here in Medway, where I'm based, and I work with them quite a lot. They have a fantastic arts organisation called Nucleus Arts, so we have a lot of synergy. But David and I were chatting and he said, I don't understand why, Lynne, you haven't got an honours or an OBE. Or he said, I'm going to put you forward for a BCAa. I said, what's a BCAa? So I didn't know what it was. But they've been going for 10 years. So this is like an incredible platform for people who literally do good works in their community. I mean, I have to say, if you look at my citation is in July 25. Some of the people I got my honours with, honestly, it was such a moving and amazing occasion. I didn't feel like should have even been there. It was so, you know, they were literally for everything, from a lot of people who've done work for charity, and all different things. But I think what it's done for me is made me really put my work in context and add some value. You know, I think I'm very difficult at putting a value on what I've done because I just get on and do it, really. But getting any kind of award, number one, you know, David put me forward for it, so I didn't have to go for it. He said, I think you should have an award. I'm going to put you forward for it. So he did that, and he got somebody else to second me, and that was very special because it was someone else doing it for me. But a lot of awards you have to nominate yourself. Or ask someone to nominate you, and I don't like doing that. I mean, I find it really excruciatingly difficult to write about myself, but I've got better at it. I think now I've had a little bit of recognition, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with it. And obviously the Best Business Women Awards, which we've both been involved with as well, which has also been quite life-changing in a way, because I'm one of these just get on with it people. But now I realize through doing that, a lot of people know more about me and Funny Women. So if you look at it in the, you know, given my background is journalism and PR, I've tried to shift it back and think about myself as what I would have said to one of my clients, which I'm very good at doing. I'm very good at advising everybody else how to get publicity and start a comedy career, whatever. But you know, a lot of us, it's not because I'm selfless, it's more because I'm uncomfortable with doing it.
I am reminded, as you're speaking, I'm reminded of that Chinese proverb, physician, heal thyself.
Yes, yes. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm still healing myself. I think I'm much more comfortable since I got the BCA. I have honestly felt much stronger in myself. And actually, I just recently had not an altercation, but a just kind of confrontation, I think is the word, with somebody over an industry event that I've always been involved with. And suddenly I'm not. I've just been not invited to do something. And I thought, I did the classic, hang on a minute. We have a very funny family phrase called, don't you know who I am? It's, it's like, don't you know who I am? Which I adopted, actually. That came from my journalism career, because to get tickets or get into things, I do this kind of whole, I'm quite good at that, you know, acting a persona. I think, well, I do need to get in here. Don't you know who I am? So it's that sort of thing. So it's rekindled that a little bit. And I did that a bit with this event. So who knows whether I'll be involved with it. But, you know, whereas I would have just taken it and been miserable about it, I'm less likely to do that now. I think, well, hang on a minute. I've been doing this for 23 years. I've got an award. Why don't you want me involved with your event?
But there was something about the BCA award which seems to be different in terms of the affirmation of who you are.
Yeah. And also, my award is for the arts. And that's really important because the arts are going through such a bashing at the moment. If you look at the world of academia, all the courses, you know, for anyone to do with art and creative industries are just being slashed back budget wise. And the arts is very beleaguered. And, you know, we lead as a country, the UK it leads on so many fronts artistically. What the hell are we doing? You know, and don't get me on comedy. Comedy's way down the pecking order. You know, that no one, it's not even recognized as an art. So I've been part of a big lobby with something, the newly set up British Comedy Association. We've been lobbying government that to recognize comedy as an art form. And if you think about how much comedy we export just in terms of television, okay, there's been a change of government, so that'll hold things up a little bit, the cabinet reshuffle. But, you know, hopefully that will go through and arts will become much more recognised. We have the world's largest arts festival in Edinburgh every year. I mean, come on.
Okay, so all go for the arts. Let's just move on then into our final reflections, Lynne. What do you think your journey has taught you about leadership?
I did have to think about this question because I think this is where I find it difficult, because I don't think of myself as a leader. And I don't think that's unusual. I think a lot of people are leaders by accident. They just find something that they're passionate about and they become very expert or very vocal about it. And then they find themselves in a position of leadership. I think that if we look at the non-profit sector which I inhabit, passion always and message are always way above profit and money. You know, it's about the cause. By non-profit, I include charities and any kind of social enterprise. So I don't think, and I'm sure someone out there will disagree with me, that men look at business in the same way. They're much more focused. They're much more direct. So business is business. Business is about making money. Even if I think of the conversations I have with my own husband, he'll say things like, it's all about the profit or whatever. Yeah, it is. But it's also about how people think and feel and supporting people. So I think female leadership does inhabit a slightly different place. But then there's lots of in between. You know, there's no one binary, is there? I mean, it's just all very fluid these days, so which is great. But I think what leadership says for me, it's about empathy. It's about responding to a need. I think even if you're a reluctant leader, once you're in that position, you kind of have a duty to accept it and pay it forward. And that, for me at the moment, that's really important, because age-wise, I'm starting to think about, probably should have thought about it years ago, but I don't want to retire, but I want to refocus some of my activities on the things that I'm really passionate about and would like to spend more time writing, getting my podcast back up again, you know, things that I'm not doing, because at the moment, this year has been totally brutal. I've just had to get back on that horse and get around the country and see talent. But that's been important. And I think it's really helped me see where comedy is today. So I feel like I'm in a really good place. But being a good leader is recognizing perhaps when it's time for you to start bringing on new people.
Passing the baton on.
Yeah. And I think I'm in my paying it forward and right of succession period of my life. I hope I can make it work, because actually it would be such a shame for all this to just disappear.
And one final
Yes.
question for women listening today who want to use more humour in their leadership or in their everyday lives, but don't actually see themselves as funny. I might be asking this for myself, actually. Where should they begin?
Well, go to the website for a start off. I mean, it's and look at us on social media. Well, a good start point actually is to if you like comedy, if most people like comedy, so find something you like, watch. I mean, it can be anything. It can be old things from years ago. It could be new stuff. There's so much comedy on TV, live. So if you got any, who doesn't like a laugh, you know, just, yeah. But maybe start with that, look at it. And then if you think, oh, do you know what? I want to be like Catherine Ryan. I want to be on that stage. I want to be on telly. Then that might be a reason for you to explore doing some kind of workshop or course or whatever. We are not the only kids on the block. There's lots of people doing it. You might prefer a mixed environment, but if you are happier in an all-female environment, then obviously we have great online courses, which are a really good way of getting started. We have my one-day workshop, which I'm still running all these years later. I love it. It's probably my most favorite thing that I do. We have the summer school and the winter warm-up, which are longer days with me and a couple of other people, which I think you've done. And then if you're feeling really brave or you've got something to perform, then you can enter the Funny Women Awards next year or become one of our next 2026 glitter challengers, which I'd be delighted to welcome you on board.
So lots of options there, Lynn. Thank you so much. And if people want to connect with you, how do they connect with you?
I'm on all the usual socials. I think email is always my favorite and easiest. I'm Lynne with an E, LYNNE @funnywomen.com, or just search Funny Women Lynne with an E, because that will find me on most things.
Yeah, your Instagram, LinkedIn, your Facebook, you're on them all, aren't you? Great. Lynne, thank you so much for coming here today,
Mary.
Sharing your story and your wisdom.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Before we wrap up, I want to share something with you. Do you ever feel like your confidence isn't really the issue, but wish you could strengthen your ability to deal with things that keep chipping away at it? The bias, the double standards, the pressure to prove yourself, to name just a few. That's exactly why I created Exploding the Confidence Myth, a 3-month programme for women leaders who are ready to change that story. It combines one-to-one coaching, group coaching, and a powerful in-person workshop. The next programme starts at the beginning of November, with the workshop taking place on the 7th of November at the Connaught Rooms in Holborn, London. Past participants have described it as validating, supportive and stretching. They've become more visible, raised their value, increased their financial return and broken through patterns that have held them back. But perhaps, most importantly, they've gained a deeper sense of okayness with who they are, recognising they already have something valuable to offer. If this resonates with you or you know someone who would benefit, you'll find all the details in the show notes. I'd love you to join us.
Thank you so much for listening to the She Leads Collective podcast. If this episode resonated with you, follow the show or share it with a friend and leave a quick review below. Or leave us a comment. Change happens through conversation, so let's keep this one going. Listen out for the next episode and join me as we keep lifting the lid on the stories that matter. Take care and keep leading with heart.